Is this reality or is it just your fantasy? The other day I made a post and it was about the difference between submission and compliance. And I said that many men say they want a submissive woman when what they really want is compliance because submission is mutual. Submission is like yielding when you get to a yield sign. Sometimes it's your turn, other times it's not. So you have to assess the situation. Compliance is just obedience because of somebody's position. So today, I had a thought because I've had, of course, men commented on that post and wanted to argue with me and all that kind of stuff. And they said, or typed, some of the strangest things, basically like wives are supposed to be seen and not heard. No, that's an old saying about children. And it wasn't even true then because that's not how children should act either, you know, or I want a woman that lets me make all the decisions, and she doesn't question me. Again, that's a small child because even small children, probably around the age of 2, start questioning why. So again, no, that's not submission either. So I thought these comments were strange. And as I look at the internet and I look at this, what people call the gender wars, I see a lot of these comments that just seem to be so strange to me. And it just dawned on me just a minute ago that I wonder whether the men that I was having these discussions with online that were commenting on my posts or, commenting on my memes, and whether these red pill podcast bros, whether they've actually grown up around married people. Because it began to be a thought in my mind, and you guys that are listening, you can respond to me. See, I've grown up around nothing but married people. My parents were married over 43 years. My grandparents were married. And I say were because they've passed on. My aunts and uncles are married. My cousins are married. In fact, in my immediate family, I have at least 20 people I could think of off the top of my head that are all married. In fact, all of my relatives in my immediate family are married. I was married. My sister is still married. I'm the only divorced person that I know of in my family. And I was married 17 years. So I've grown up and I've seen all different types of marriages. Research can divide marriages into 4 different types. You have the devitalized, you have the traditional, and those two are kind of toxic. And then you have the harmonious, and then you have the one that kind of is the best of both worlds, where you have the Michelangelo effect, where the two people make each other better, you know. And so we've got all these marriages around me growing up, and all of my friends, their parents were married. I did not encounter a household that was led by a single mom until I was in 7th grade. So I grew up around nothing but married people for the entirety of my childhood, except for, like I said, that one single parent family. So I have seen marriages, and I have seen submissive wives, and I have seen men who were leaders. And even I wonder even whether these men who have all these opinions, whether they even had to go through some of the things that the guys that I dated went through. Like, they had to meet my father. Did these guys have to do that? Did they have to actually go and, meet the parents before they could take the girl out? You know what I'm saying? So I'm beginning to wonder because they seem to have these far-fetched fantasies of how relationships work, how marriages work. And I'm wondering if it's because they've actually never been around married couples for very long. I mean, it's one thing when you go hang out with your married friends and, you're around them for a few days or a few hours. It's a whole nother thing when you're living with somebody and seeing their marriage and they're not hiding anything, when you're being raised around this, when your relatives are married. And I'm beginning to wonder whether some of these people, have they not seen what marriages are like? Or if they haven't, is their fantasy because they've thought about what they think made their dad leave and they don't want to get caught in this hypothetical situation that might make them leave, and so they're overreacting and trying to course correct to some fear that they have, some fantasy that they have of, if my mother was like this, like I want my wife to be, then maybe my dad wouldn't have left. If she was robotic and, compliant to the nth degree, to where she's acting like she doesn't have a thought in her head, maybe my dad wouldn't have left. So this is just something that I'm wondering about, because it's hard for me to believe that adult men actually say the things that they say as if they've never been around a real couple before, as if they've never been around a real marriage before. Married people argue, married people have disagreements, and even the most submissive wives question their husbands and expect certain things. They don't just go along with everything that he says and everything that he does. I mean, the only cases where that may happen is women that are being abused. So, there is that. May you walk in Zenergy.